Hello and welcome to this video on dominant seventh chord inversions. At this point, if you've not watched the previous videos on dominant seventh chords in root position, as well as triad inversions, I would encourage you to watch those videos now, as it'll help you with the learning of this new material. In the previous video, we explored how a dominant seventh chord is built up from the root using a major third, a perfect fifth, and a minor seventh. However, all of the examples were in root position, meaning the root was the bottom note. If we rearrange the notes so that the root is no longer the bottom note, we will have different inversions. If we move the root so that the third is now the lowest note, we have a dominant seventh chord in first inversion. If we move the root and the third so that now the fifth is the lowest note, we have a dominant seventh chord in second inversion. If we move the root, the third, and the fifth so that now the seventh is the lowest note, we have a dominant seventh chord in third inversion. Let's see what this would look like. The four chords before you are all C dominant seventh chords in different inversions. The example on the far left is a root position chord. It has that characteristic shape where it is all in thirds, either on all lines or all spaces. If we take the root of this chord, in this case C, and move it up an octave, we now have a first inversion chord, as now the third is the lowest note. If we move the third, in this case an E, up the octave, so now that both the root and the third have been moved up, now the fifth is the lowest note, making it a second inversion triad. If we move the fifth up, which in this case is a G, so now that the root, the third, and the fifth have been moved, the seventh is now the lowest note, and now we have a third inversion triad. These are all C dominant seventh chords, as they contain the same four notes, just in different orders. They would sound like this. The shape of each of these inversions in closed position is unique and will help you to identify what inversion you're looking at. Sometimes, just like with triads, numbers are used to refer to the different inversions. These numbers refer to the distance of the other notes from the bass note. In root position, as you can see, we have the root, third, fifth, and seventh. Because we have notes that are a third, a fifth, and a seventh above, sometimes the numbers 7, 5, 3 are used to refer to a seventh chord in root position. In fact, sometimes they take it even further and just use the number 7. With a first inversion chord, because there are notes that are a third, a fifth, and a sixth above the bass note, sometimes the numbers 6, 5, 3 are used to refer to that inversion. They shorten it even further sometimes, just using the numbers 6, 5. With second inversion, because there are notes that are a third, fourth, and sixth above the bass note, the numbers 6, 4, 3 are used. Again, this is frequently even shortened further to 4, 3. With third inversion, because there are notes that are second, fourth, and sixth above the bass, the numbers 6, 4, 2 are used. And frequently, this is shortened even further to just 4, 2 to refer to the third inversion. Initially, when dealing with seventh chords in different inversions, I would recommend rewriting the notes into root position to help you determine the different intervals of the notes. Let's take a quick look at one more example. All four of these chords are E flat dominant seventh chords. If we start with the one in root position and take the root, in this case an E flat, and move it up an octave, we now have a first inversion triad, as now the third, or the G, is the lowest note. If we move that G, or the third, up as well, so now that the root and the third have been moved, the fifth is now the lowest note, and we have a second inversion triad. If we go even further, moving that fifth up an octave, so now that the seventh is the lowest note, we now have a third inversion triad. Again, remember the numbers that are used for the different inversions. 7 commonly refers to a seventh chord in root position. 6, 5 refers to a seventh chord in first inversion. 4, 3 refers to a seventh chord in second inversion. And 4, 2 to a seventh chord in third inversion.